And hi, everybody. Doug Miles along with Don Henderson. We're here in Sarasota, Florida today by the bay in a beautiful December day. A little cloudy, but Don, you were up in Philly for the last few months. Good to be in some decent weather.
I have to agree to 100%. I'm going to be here for another week, as you well know, and then back for Christmas. And then fortunately, at the end of the month, I'm back here for the season.
We want to congratulate Don for being inducted into the Philadelphia Broadcasters Hall of Fame a couple of weeks ago. You can see his speech on YouTube. You can just go to Google Don Henderson. It's right up there, and that must have been a nice night for you. I know you had a lot of family there.
I'll tell you, yes, we did. We had 32, and you're right, it was a terrific night. The Hilton Hotel, I'll give them a little bit of a plug. They did a great job. And, of course, the broadcasters, they really know how to do it. They did it up about as well as you can do it.
Yeah, one of the great broadcaster clubs in this country. We have one down here, not quite as big, but Philadelphia has such great broadcasting history,
well,
much like New York.
This is pretty much even, this is even a little bit bigger than New York, which is surprising. Excuse me. This is a little bit bigger, and I would have thought New York would have had much more membership type thing, but they don't. So it really worked out exceptionally well.
And there's a few clips of Don on his speech, but we're going to try and get some of the longer versions of Don's work. We were talking at breakfast today. Don did one of the first call-in television sports shows, so we had some clips of that. I'd never seen that before. I know you talked about it, so hopefully we'll get some of those longer version clips. But Don innovated the two-way television talk show, sports talk show.
Well, the interesting thing about that was, Doug, that we didn't keep tapes. I have a couple of little things.
They were expensive back then.
Yeah,
people didn't record them and keep them.
Yeah, that they used.
The stations didn't record.
They
them.
used in the presentation, but I don't have like a rack of tapes that we saved from the shows, and which is right now is unfortunate. You'd like to have it now.
Yeah, live television. Look at the Tonight Show. The first 10 years of that they didn't keep. So,
exactly.
Unfortunate. Great history of broadcasting. Not kept. Anyway, let's talk about some of the things going on. We're heading into a championship weekend in college football, Final Four. Looks like no matter what happens today, Don, as we talk on a Saturday, December 7th, not much is going to change no matter what happens today, right?
Well, it's going to be very interesting to see, as you and I talked earlier today, what teams are going to go where when it comes time for the Final Four selection later tonight, tomorrow, Sunday. It's going to be very interesting to see what comes out because, Ohio State, to me, seems to be the best team in the country. Their record indicates that they're the best team in the country every time they've been up against a supposed challenger like Penn State, or they've been able to, win the games without any problem. So I think Ohio State will remain number one, and then we'll go from there and see what happens.
Kind of ironic in a sense. Urban Meyer gets leaves after last year. You figure it might be a slight drop-off, but they're even better, I think.
Well, not only have they been better, but I think today's paper, if I'm not mistaken, they're saying that he may go to the Dallas Cowboys.
That's a story. I'm not a big fan of his. We've talked about it before on the show. I don't think he'd make it in the pros. I mean, if he's having all these health issues in college, what's it going to be like working for Jerry Jones?
Well, it's going to be very, very...
I mean, the pressure on him.
It's going to be very, very interesting because he is
and he's never coached in the pros.
He's an outstanding college coach. Every stop he's made the team either a number one team or a big contender to be number one. A great winning record, and of course Ohio State culminates what he did here in Florida.
It'll be a lot of baggage, though.
Yep. Well, they all do. If you want to win,
right?
You don't win by getting players that have high academic standards.
That's right. The choir doesn't produce a lot of great football players.
No, they don't. No, they don't. You're right.
But speaking of college coaches, locally, a team you and I have covered for many years, USF, and a man that coached at your alma mater, Charlie Strong, let go after last week. Not really a surprise there. They had just a dismal season this year, 4-8, and last year losing their last 6, losing their last 4 in a row this year. I think he had 1 year left on his contract, maybe 2. It was kind of unclear.
Right.
He's out, and a lot of talk about Willie Taggart wants to come back. Jim Leavitt, former coach, wants to come back. So unfortunately, the USF football program has really become irrelevant.
Well, they also talked about what they don't have. There are a lot of facilities that everybody else have, even Central Florida, which is built into a real competitive program. USF just doesn't have those kinds of facilities.
Right.
And so it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do, not just to hire a coach, but as you indicated, when Willie left, he had the program going in the right direction. They really were very competitive within the conference, and so we just have to wait and see. Charlie did not do a good job at Texas. He was fired there, came here, and thought he would be able to make a resurgence.
Yeah.
It didn't happen.
And it never worked.
No, it never worked. And of course, last week was the end for him.
They got killed by UCF in that game a week ago, Thanksgiving Friday, and that was the last straw. And of course, he was hired by the previous AD.
Right.
So USF
right.
is a different AD now. And
A little hay fever
Kelly,
out here.
formerly, I think, with the college football playoffs, I believe he worked with that before. So he wants to make, like we said, USF at one time, not too long ago, was number 2 in the country at one point.
Exactly.
During the season under Jim Leavitt, and then
Yep.
they've fallen down since. So.
Well, again, it was he was sort of went out on very unusual
He got
circumstances. That
pushed
didn't-
out, right.
Yeah, he got pushed out.
They
and,
said he grabbed a player by the face mask and some other things, so he
and
was
then
fired.
he finally hooked on as a defense coordinator over at Florida State with Willie.
Right.
And everybody thought, boy, this might be the turnaround. He may be able to really help Willie and get him into the front echelon, but it didn't. He just didn't last long enough to do that.
Yeah, you and I have had a chance to see Willie. Covered him a few times, several times at home when he was the coach. And
Right.
nice man. I got to meet him once or twice, but I just never thought he really had the presence with the media talking to them. I know that's not the only thing you look for, but just didn't seem great at that. And then the surprising move a couple years ago when Oregon hired him, and then he leaves there after a year to go to FSU, and it just really fell apart. I think he might have exceeded his grasp a little bit. I think he should have stayed at USF. Took the money. You can't blame him for that.
No, you cannot blame
But he
him for
wants to
that.
come back now.
And he didn't do a bad job at Oregon. He didn't do a real.
I think it was
you know,
7-5, 8-4,
yeah,
something
didn't
like
really
that.
jump, but he did a pretty fair job at Oregon. And then he got the opportunity at Florida State. Now he wants to come back. He wants to build or buy a home in Manatee, where he grew up.
Played high school football.
Played
in
high school
Manatee High
football
School.
there, and that's what he wants to do. He wants to come back and reassociate himself with USF. And he also had pointed out in his interview, at least what was written in the paper, that he emphasized that he's not looking to jump somewhere else. If some
Well, he has to say that.
and you can always, that's what I mean. You can always say those things, but if another opportunity came up, who knows what would happen.
I think you and I were emailing about that. I said, all right, say you bring him back. Let's say he turns it around in 1 year, goes 10-2. Now the Big Five conference offers him big money. They have short memories. They only look at the last year. He's going to
Contracts-
want to leave. What do you do?
Contracts don't mean very
Don't mean
much
anything.
today.
Yeah. Or what if he does a terrible job? Now you got to fire him again in 2 or 3 years. It's a bad situation, I think, if he comes back.
Yeah, and as I say, what they're talking about is, the fact that they don't really have a stadium. They don't really have.
They
a
play at Tampa
practice-
Stadium, for people who don't know.
Yeah,
where
they
the
don't
Bucs
have
play.
a practice facility. They don't have all the things that you have to have today, the weight rooms, the practice facilities, indoor practice facilities. You have to have these things in order to be competitive, and USF just has not been able to raise enough money so far.
I think they have about $20 million of the $50 million they say they need for this
Yeah,
indoor facility.
exactly. You're right. You're right on the nose.
Something like that. But and again, the attendance has been dreadful.
Oh.
I mean, I've been to the games where they say there's 25,000, and that's very generous. Maybe half of that. So it's a shame. I mean, you like to go to a full stadium, but they just don't draw it.
Yep.
Tampa Bay sports again. Let's talk about the baseball situation. The story came out yesterday. Of course, the big hullabaloo over the Rays and splitting a season in Montreal. That was what, around May, April, whenever they came out with that.
Yeah.
That's dead in the water now, according to the mayor of St. Pete, who they hold the lease on the Trop.
Till 28, and they said they will not, and under any circumstances, go along with a split season. Half the games in Montreal, half the games in Tampa. The contract goes through 28, and they are going to enforce that contract until the end. And as you and I have talked about, even if they were to move, I don't care whether it would be Charlotte or Nashville, and we were going to
Vegas.
talk about a few other places along the way. But even if they were, by the time they built a stadium in
Right.
Vegas and all that, it would probably take at least 5 years, and then you pay the contract out and you leave. So it'll be interesting to see whether the mayor's been very strong about enforcing that contract and not letting them go anywhere, or split the season, which
Right.
is not good.
But that never would have worked anyway. Just
No.
the logistics, the broadcast rights,
No.
so many things involved in that. The union, baseball union, probably wouldn't have gone for
No,
that.
and you're not going to have 3 homes. Your home that you live in, your family home, and then you have to have a home in Tampa Bay during the season to live there. Then you'd have to have another home for half the games in Montreal. You're not going to do that.
And the value of the dollar in Canada, I mean, that's a whole issue with athletes.
Very much less money.
How do you pay the Canadian half or whatever it is?
Well, you'd have to pay in American dollars.
It's a mess, yeah. So that never was going to happen.
No.
They may move there eventually, but not the split.
No, you're exactly right.
So we'll see what happens with that. But kind of ancillary to that, Don, we were talking at breakfast about Pat Williams, a man you know well from the 76er days. About a month ago, he came out with a plan to bring baseball to Orlando. The Orlando Dreamers is at least the initial name of it. And you know him well, so you think there's a shot, huh?
Well, if they are going to move, and
he wants a new team, but he didn't
Right.
specifically say it had to be.
he wants a team. He had a big press conference over there in Orlando, and he built the Magic from nothing. He left the 76ers with the dream of building a professional basketball team. Got down to Orlando and was able to start from scratch and build the franchise, still associated with the franchise, although he doesn't run the team anymore as he used to. So I think this is, and he's really a baseball guy. He went to Wake Forest. He was a catcher on the baseball team.
Right.
One of his sons played in the Cincinnati organization. Before he ever got involved in basketball, he was always a much...
Yeah, I didn't realize that till recently.
much more involved in baseball. So I think this is one of his dreams, and he's trying to get enough support financially to get it off the ground, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully he's successful.
Yeah, hopefully, for his sake, I know he's been battling some health issues, that he'll be able to do it. He's a courageous guy. We had him on about 5-6 months ago when he wrote the latest book on West Point.
Yeah.
Writes a lot of books and a very inspirational guy. So if anybody can do it, he can.
He's certainly going to give it a whirlwind try, and we'll just see how they just had the initial stage to see if they could get, what kind of support can they get from the community, what kind of support can we get from the financial dollars we need to get it started. It's really on the ground floor right now, but I wish him a lot of luck. I hope he's successful.
I know his selling point's going to be, well, we have whatever it is, 40, 50 million people a year come in to see Disney World and all the theme parks. If we just get 2 million of those people, we got enough for a baseball team.
Yeah, and it's certainly going to draw more than 9,000 that they draw at the Trop.
Yeah. The Rays, despite another great season, averaged
hard to believe
under 10,000. Except for the Yankees and Red Sox coming in, it was about under 10,000.
Almost impossible to believe that they could not draw more than that with a team that won almost 100 games.
Yeah.
I mean,
2 years in a row now they've done it.
Yeah, it's not like they're we're a middle of the road or down the road team. They were a competitive team till the last week, and they can't draw more than 9,000 people on average to the games. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Manager even wins Manager of the Year cash this year.
Yeah.
American League.
Yeah.
And really, nobody knows about him. I mean,
I'll tell you.
Even locally, probably people don't know his name.
You have to give the administration with the Rays all the credit in the world, not only for the way they've been able to stay competitive with no money. I mean, their cash payroll is almost nothing, and compared to other teams, and yet they continue to be competitive. And then the managers that they've had. I mean, like you said, Cash was with Cleveland. Nobody knew who Cash was.
No.
And he's done a terrific job.
Great job. And you have to look at him now as when his contract's up, going somewhere else.
Yeah.
He wants to go somewhere where he'll be known and maybe win.
And the prior manager even did better than that. He got him to the World Series.
Yeah,
So
Joe Madden we're talking about out in California.
Now he's with the Angels. Yeah.
Anaheim,
of course, after taking the Cubs to the World Series.
Right.
So, but as you said, what have you done for me lately? He took the Cubs to the World Series 3 years ago, and they had a successful but not successful enough year this year. Fired.
We'll wrap it up, a little NFL talk. We were talking before we started doing the show. Not too many teams worth watching. I know your Eagles are in trouble, although they're still in it. Our New York teams are just woeful. Bucks are kind of mediocre. Bruce Arians, a guy you know well, has not really gotten it going yet.
They better beat the Giants.
Eagles on Monday night. Right?
Everybody's going to be run out of town. They are just losing to Miami was the piece de resistance, I would say. Nobody expected them to lose to Miami, and they did last week. But they've had a number of losses that they shouldn't have had.
Yeah, terrible losses. Of course, the Cowboys lose a brutal one to the Bears last Thursday night. Talk
Nobody
about
wants to win in that division.
Nobody. The Giants, like you mentioned, are awful.
Washington.
Shermer's out. Washington, and then of course the Jets. That's another mess up there. Boy, if you grew up in New York like you and I did, it's brutal.
Oh, right now,
sports.
only hope you have is the Islanders. The rest of it, forget it.
And the Bucks down here, not really catching any fire with the fans. I mean, they'll play a game where Winston plays okay, and then they'll play another game where they just fall apart. So I know you know Arians well.
Yeah,
some talk maybe he's not going to bother coming back next year.
Well,
what do you think?
It'll be interesting to see. Carolina just fired their coach, and he's one of the best coaches in the league. And I will say this for Bruce: he's made the team competitive. He lost a couple of games. He shouldn't have lost the Giant game, obviously.
Right.
And or I'm sorry, he didn't lose it. They won it with that field goal. But no, he's got a much better record now than they anticipated he would have. And also, Winston maybe played his best game ever last Sunday.
Last week, right? Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on that. But until then, I know we're coming up at the holiday time, so we want to wish you all Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And Donna, you're heading back up north for the holiday time, and in January we'll get it going with the Outback Bowl.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that. Should be a couple of really good teams because, Alabama's out of the Final Four now, and, they have a great selection committee to break it down. So we'll look forward to the Outback Bowl. We'll all be there, and I'll look forward to going home for Christmas and spend the holidays with the kids. And same to you. Merry Christmas, and everybody that's watching, Merry Christmas to you, and a safe Christmas. Drive carefully.
Thanks for watching, everybody.